exclusive episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, SCS Nation? Welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. We made a promise to you in 2025. It's not 2025 yet, but almost, that we're going to bring you breaking news. And there's big breaking news tonight, just put out by one of the papers of record in New York City. That would be the New York Post. And this is a biggie. It relates to Sean Diddy Combs. And we're going to go through this step by step, piece by piece here with the former LA prosecutor of the year. He's the guy, and this has tentacles to Los Angeles, so it is very relevant. Josh Ritter, again, former prosecutor of the year in Los Angeles, a criminal defense attorney, and the host. You can see part of it on his shirt. I want one of those shirts. Courtroom Confidential. I love it. I'm gonna beg him for one of those. I'll even pay
coming
for
soon.
One. Yeah. So there you go. Make sure you check out the podcast, and Josh and I are working together to bring you breaking news. Me from the news perspective, my background, and Josh, of course, is being an attorney. So please check out his channel too. The big headline here, of course, we know what's been going on with Sean Diddy Combs over the last bunch of months. Both his mansions in Miami and LA were raided. Now he's being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, one of the worst detention centers in the country, a federal holding center. And people all along have said, well, are there going to be other big names dragged into the Diddy debauchery? And now, tonight, it has happened, and it is arguably a bigger name than Diddy himself, and that would be hip-hop star Jay-Z. Before I even I'm going to break this down with Josh, kind of paragraph by paragraph, and shout out to Emily Crane, the journalist at the New York Post. I always say this, print reporters, they really are kind of the heartbeat of journalism. She did an amazing job here breaking this story. This is going to send reverberations, through the entire globe here. This is a massive story. And I want to preface it by saying right now, these are allegations in what appears to be a civil suit, simply allegations, but either which way, no matter which way you cut it, this obviously is going to taint Jay-Z's name, his public persona, everything that goes along with his ecosystem. And of course, he is married to Beyonce, so another massive name. Josh Ritter, before we get into dissecting this breaking news, when I called you just now, you had just heard of it yourself about it. We literally just learned this news in the last 15 minutes. When you heard the name Jay-Z now being dragged into a Diddy civil lawsuit, what was your initial reaction? Before you go, Ida Shaw, JD, 100% Joel. These are allegations. She always keeps me in check. That's why I said it, Ida Shaw, JD. We do not know if this is true, but it is the first time that a giant name in the industry is being dragged in to the Diddy scandal. Josh Ritter, when you heard Jay-Z's name, what was your initial reaction? I know you're still looking over the material.
Yeah, I mean, I just heard it so soon that I'm still reading the article as you're speaking, and it's pretty remarkable stuff. I mean, yeah, you make an excellent point. It's hard to think of a name in the hip hop music industry, or just the music industry, or just a celebrity name bigger than Jay-Z. I mean, you know, this is Jay-Z, this is Beyonce, this is about as big as you can get as far as celebrities go. And my initial reaction was kind of like, this is something I think we were all expecting, that not Jay-Z necessarily, but the floodgates were going to start to open. When you take down a name as big as P. Diddy, as big as Sean Combs, that, you know, when you topple kind of a person that powerful, people's fears go away. Now it's like everyone who ever had was fearful to come forward, they're going to start coming forward. And you know, Sean Combs no longer has the power that he once did, can no longer scare, influence, pay people off, but that's going to have not a trickle down, but a earthquake kind of ramification surrounding it of other people, that people are now going to say, you know what, who's to say that person, that celebrity also shouldn't fall? Why am I afraid of them? They can't get to me. If all these people are coming out against P. Diddy, then why not somebody like Jay-Z? That was my thought. And I thought we would start hearing some of these big names, but I'll tell you what, if this is the first one that we're hearing, it is a very, very big name.
Yeah, exactly. This is as big as it gets. Josh makes an excellent point. Look, there are oftentimes NDAs that are required by major celebrities, non-disclosure agreements. Most people are forced to sign them. There's no other alternative. And as a result, and I can tell you from my own experience, having worked at Fox News Channel, Bill O'Reilly had a lot of, I know personally, some people involved in that, and they were forced to sign NDAs. He had to pay a woman $32 million. I mean, this is one example. My point is that there was tremendous fear at the time.
Yeah.
And now, to Josh's point, maybe people who were forced into sexual activity they did not want to be a part of, especially at the age of 13, which is what this lawsuit alleges, which is what we're going to get to in a moment. You know, now maybe sort of that Pandora's box is going to open up more freely. People will be able to come out and speak more openly if, in fact, the lid is blown off of this, which it seems like right now we're at the beginning stages of that happening.
Yeah, and I'll tell you too that if people are thinking to themselves, and because this is a civil lawsuit, and if people are thinking to themselves, oh, well, this is just a civil lawsuit, and you know, these things do happen. I mean, any celebrity, people come out, people want. I'm not saying that it's impossible that people are looking for a money grab and they sue some big name and they're hoping to get a payoff. But if you're thinking that we are still in the days of where a civil suit can be easily handled and somebody will just make some money and they'll move, you know, the big celebrity will move on with their life. P. Diddy started with a lawsuit. It all started with a lawsuit that a settlement came very quickly, and then all of a sudden the floodgates opened, and then all of a sudden a criminal investigation opened. And that's sometimes how these criminal investigations get pushed over the edge, is a civil suit comes and people start coming forward, willing to kind of be a little bit more brave about it, giving depositions. And before you know, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, please don't view this as some sort of easily handled money matter. That's what started with Diddy. And now this man's behind bars and may remain there for the better part of his life.
By the way, we are now joined. I don't think they know each other. Brian Wice, meet Josh Ritter. Josh Ritter, former prosecutor of the year. Brian Wice, perhaps the most formidable defense attorney in the great city of Houston, Texas, also does appellate work. He's laughing, but he's a big deal.
Now, you know what? That's like being the coolest Osmond brother, you know. Yeah. As opposed to Josh, like we say in the mob, Josh is a made guy. All right,
exactly.
It's as simple as that. You know?
Brian, I'm glad I'm not the only one wearing a hat and a raggedy hoodie, although you have a long sleeve shirt. Go Yankees.
Go Dodgers. I like that.
Ritter's in LA. Ritter's in LA. Listen, for full disclosure, this news broke less than 20 minutes ago. So we're just coming on and we're going to break it down with you, Brian and Josh. But Brian, the same question. Actually, let me pivot a little bit here. So this is your world, your neck of the woods, where Tony Busby is based out of. He is in Houston, Texas. He is a personal injury attorney that has been bringing this suit. Now, it is not 1,000% clear in this article but this appears to be a suit that Tony Busby filed back originally in October, and I'll get into the details in a moment, and is now coming back around to add Jay-Z's name to the suit. You cannot get a bigger name than that in the world of celebrity, music or otherwise. Tony Busby. He said there are going to be big names dragged into it. I guess he wasn't lying, Brian.
No, it doesn't get any bigger than this. Look, Tony Busby is somebody who I've actually said on this air before is the guy that you want having your back in a rumble. Forget about Riff and Bernardo and the Jets and the Sharks, okay? He's the real deal. He's a Marine. He is somebody who, pound for pound, is probably one of the best, most feared civil litigators in Texas, if not the United States of America. And he is talented enough to actually drive outside his lane. He dipped his feet into the criminal arena, if you will, representing Ken Paxton, our Attorney General, in the impeachment proceedings that the House and Senate brought over a year ago. And of course, I was a bit player, being the special prosecutor who played the part of the Washington Generals to the Harlem Globetrotters in most of that litigation. But Tony Busby is the individual who I think many of your listeners may know is having represented a number of victims who filed suit a year and change ago, against then Houston quarterback Deshaun Watson, who of course was later traded to the Cleveland Browns. A trade that had the same success, I think, as probably Howard the Duck or Gigli, for you Hollywood people out there. Tony is not afraid to go to court. Tony's not afraid to mix it up. Tony is not the kind of guy who is going to go into this half-cocked. And what we'll see is ultimately what we saw in Deshaun Watson. The beauty, if you will, perhaps the tragedy of the civil justice system, compared and contrasted to what, Mike and I do, or excuse me, Josh and I do, is that anybody with a filing fee and a statement can walk up the courthouse steps and literally, or as we say in Beverly Hills, literally file that lawsuit. Right now, like you said, this is breaking news. We are, seconds, maybe minutes into the first period of what's going to be, something that could well run multiple overtimes. What is going to be interesting is whether or not the Jane Doe in this case is ultimately going to be revealed in terms of her identity. We had the same thing in Deshaun Watson. And Texas law, like a lot of states, permits Jane Doe filings up through a certain point in the proceedings. This is something that is going to be a battle of the heavyweights. Look, I know that Jay-Z probably has an armada of legal talent at his disposal. He may have to resurrect Tom Hagen from, The Godfather, because he may need a wartime consigliere. But Tony Busby, love him or hate him, and he's an acquired taste, is the real deal, guys.
Yeah, by the way, it's Brian Wice who told me he no longer, that is Tony Busby, he doesn't have the tank on his front lawn, but he did have a tank, obviously an alpha male, a man's man, I guess. And he said he was going to call out some big name celebrities and he wasn't scared. And it looks like it just happened. Let me just go through a little bit of what is going on, and then we'll get more of a breakdown from Josh Ritter, former prosecutor of the year in LA, host of Courtroom Confidential, and Brian Wice, who's one of the better known attorneys out of the great state of Texas, especially when it comes to appellate work. So according to the New York Post, Josh Ritter, hip hop star Jay-Z now is accused of allegedly DVing. It's the R word, which I can't use on YouTube, but of R-ing a 13-year-old girl with Sean Diddy Combs. This happened reportedly at a VMA after party in New York, and it was 2 decades ago. So this person, this Jane Doe, now was filed as a Jane Doe lawsuit. She, we assume, would be roughly 33 years of age if this was 2 decades ago, give or take some years here. The question everyone is asking right now, Josh Ritter, at least in the chat, why is this civil, not criminal, what are the steps that will now follow this bombshell? And look, news people always say bombshell, and I make fun of them. This is a bombshell. This is arguably the biggest celebrity, if not one of the top 3 biggest celebrities in the world. So why civil, not criminal, Josh? Let's start it there.
Well, the short, simple answer is that civil operates at a lower standard. It's a different standard. To bring a civil lawsuit, you only need to be able to prove something by the preponderance of the evidence, which just means slightly more than not. Criminally, and therefore what prosecutors consider when even bringing criminal charges, is a proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest standard of proof that we have. And prosecutors are supposed to believe that they can prove something beyond a reasonable doubt before they even charge someone with a crime. So that might be one of the reasons. But that does not mean that the conduct alleged is somehow different. The conduct being alleged here is criminal conduct. It just may be that prosecutors don't feel that they have enough evidence quite yet to actually bring criminal charges. I don't think that there's a statute of limitations issue here. I mean, talking about the assault, sexual assault of a minor, I believe that's decades long, even in wherever this may have taken place. I think that, well, after the VMAs, so in New York. So I'm not quite sure of what their statute is, but I can't imagine that that would be the issue here. But from what I'm reading, the allegations are that Jay-Z, a 13-year-old girl, by the way, this is not close. This is not, oh, she looked older. 13-year-old girl removed her clothing and held her down while she was assaulted. So we're talking physical assault here. We're not talking some sort of statutory situation, some sort of coerced, some sort of alcohol influence. We're talking physical, forceful, R word, which is serious as it gets. So, I mean, if this is charged criminally, this alone, and it's both of them, by the way, both Jay-Z and P. Diddy are alleged to be a part of this assault. We're talking decades in prison alone if that is a criminal case that gets brought.
Again, if you're just joining us, a lot of breaking news. Got a manhunt ongoing in New York, which we were just on the air about. Get off the air, and now there's word that Jay-Z has been named in a civil lawsuit related to DV with Sean Diddy Combs. And again, the attorney, Tony Busby, had fired warning shots saying, I don't care who you are, I'm coming after you. And I guess the guy was not lying, because here we are with Jay-Z named in the suit. Now, Brian, to you, the suit, according to this story, was originally filed in October against just Sean Diddy Combs, but it has now been refiled to include Jay-Z. Of course, his real name is Sean Carter. Jay-Z and his staff did not comment to either NBC, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure here if it was NBC that broke this or the New York Post, but it was one and or both of them. But kudos to both for being on top of the news. Again, in the initial court papers, the alleged teen victim, 13 at the time, she'd be roughly 33 now. This happened back in September of 2000. Alleges that she was forcibly AR'd, can't say the word on YouTube, by both Diddy and Jay-Z. But Brian, my question to you, why would it have been filed in October? And by the way, when it was filed in October, I believe it was filed with 2 unnamed celebrities. And now, obviously, one of those 2 has been named. Why now, Brian?
Well, I don't think it's really a coincidence, because I remember, as one of these old timers that actually reads a hard copy of the Houston Chronicle, our newspaper here in H-Town, and the New York Times, I remember sitting at the breakfast table reading the Chronicle, and on page 2 above the fold, as we say in the business, there was a huge headline, Busby accused of extortionate behavior. And it was a shot across the bow, if you will, from P. Diddy's lawyer or from another lawyer associated with the litigation, basically saying, Tony Busby sent us a letter that in a soundbite is blackmail, is extortionate. He has demanded X number of dollars for us to write him a certified check or money order or green stamps. And if we don't pay, he is going to go public with the identity of who this individual is. So this is not a total shock. Okay. This is something that I really think was bound to happen, because one of the great parlor games that I'm sure that your listeners are aware of is, who are all of these other alleged big name A-list page 6 celebrities whose names are going to be dropped into the mix? And this is certainly the first of many. And so when it was clear that Jay-Z's lawyers said, no, thank you, bring it on, let's go, then I think it was just a matter of time before this did become public, before the lawsuit was amended. And that's why we're all on the air tonight, breaking this news on a Sunday night in December, guys.
Yeah. We've got a statement from Jay-Z, COE. I sent it to you for those new to the show. COE is the chief of everything. She runs everything behind the scenes and sometimes in front. This is from Jay-Z, and I quote here: "These allegations are so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Whomever would commit such a crime against a minor should be locked away. Would you not agree? Question mark, question mark." Carter said in a statement to NBC News. These alleged victims would deserve real justice if that were the case. Very interestingly worded. Let's go through that. Josh Ritter, he says, again, these allegations are so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. What's interesting here, it doesn't say I didn't do it anywhere, Josh Ritter.
That's a really good point. I did not. That's a kind of a glaring omission. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty incredible statement, because it really is throwing down the gauntlet. I mean, he's saying, and you have to imagine this got ran through a gamut of attorneys, but they're saying, you know what? This is so horrible what you're accusing me of. Then why am I not in handcuffs? Why are you not knocking at the door of the police station? Why are you filing something in court? And I think the obvious, point they're trying to drive home is this is a money grab. You're after money. That's why you're not at the police station. You don't really have the facts and evidence to back this up. You want to make an accusation against me, smear my name, and try to embezzle or coerce or somehow squeeze money out of me. But I'll say this: that is a really aggressive statement to be made in light of the person who's the co-defendant on this lawsuit with him, and in light of the kind of even current climate that we have. I don't know if that is the right strategy to be taking, of such a kind of unabashedly, hold your chin up, go ahead and come after me sort of a posture, when, a lot of people are going down, and a lot of people are having some really awful, interesting stuff come out of the woodwork from years and years ago. So I don't know. I don't know if that's just to kind of put on these airs of you would think it would start out with I did nothing wrong, but it's kind of assuming I did nothing wrong, because if I did, you'd be going to the police rather than going to a court.
Yeah. By the way, I believe it was NBC News. I just want to correct that broke this story. It looks like they broke around 6:30 Eastern time. We were on the air covering some other stuff, but the reporter here, Chloe Mellis, she handles entertainment news for NBC, obviously with a massive scoop here. Brian, I want to get your reaction to this statement. Again, Jay-Z issued a written statement, nothing, on video or audio, just a written statement. And you got to believe he's got an army of attorneys. He says, these allegations are so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. Whomever would commit such a crime against a minor should be locked away. Again, what's glaringly omitted here is any defense by himself or Diddy that they did not do this. It's just sort of open-ended questions. And I guess reading through the lines, to Josh's point, this is obviously super tough to prove from 20 years ago. So, you know, it sounds like if Jay-Z was involved in this, he's hedging his bets, saying, come after me. What kind of evidence do you have 20 years later?
You know, Josh made a great point. As I was running around my house, getting ready to come on the air and talking to Steve, you know, the Steph Curry of producers, I was looking at the statement and I thought, wow, you know, this is great. This says it all. And then it's like, in the midst of all of that, I'm thinking to myself, wait, the first thing that you generally see, and it's public relations, it's image defense 101. And when I've had the privilege of lecturing other lawyers and prosecutors and judges on how to deal with the media, again, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. I tell them, I remind them of Smoking Joe Frazier. You know, Smoking Joe wasn't Smoking Joe because, you know, smoke fatties. It's because if you came late to a Smoking Joe fight, you might miss the knockout in the first round. My point is this: you start out with, I wholeheartedly and categorically deny each and every one of these blasphemous, venal, vile charges, period. Full effing stop. And the fact that we don't see that, to me, speaks volumes. And while, you know, Jay-Z asks all the right rhetorical questions, you would have thought, as Josh pointed out, where's the money shot? Okay, where is this? We're missing that. And I don't know whether that was calculated. I don't know whether or not they were sleep deprived or caffeine deprived on a Sunday night. No one knows. Eventually, I think we'll probably see that, because I'm sure that word will get back to Team Jay-Z. Wait a second, you know, spelling your name right in the SAT is going to get you 200 points. You didn't do that. And so I don't know, but in a situation where Jay-Z again has the budget of a third world country and the arsenal of most of the Western world to be able to defend a lawsuit of this kind, Josh is right. It's a rookie mistake in the first couple minutes of the ball game, guys.
Yeah, you're hearing from two incredible attorneys, and you just heard Brian Wice say if he was advising Jay-Z, Sean Carter, he would have said categorically, I was not involved. When you look at this statement right now, very curious. Ali, I hear you, and I've made it very clear. These are only allegations, just allegations, but it is now a civil suit that's being filed in the Southern District of New York. If you look at this statement, though, there's nowhere where he denies it, nowhere he says he wasn't a part of it. People are asking, well, so what happened? Let's, you know, obviously lay that out. This is a then 13-year-old young girl, 13. And as Josh said, it's not like, you know, on the line, maybe 17 and looks older. This is a 13-year-old girl. After being driven to an after party at a quote-unquote drug-fueled house party in September 2000, the suit alleges that both Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs attacked her, leaving her after leaving her woozy and lightheaded. And we keep hearing that again and again, that these people were drugged by these potential offenders. Obviously, Jay-Z is out and about. He has not been criminally charged with anything. Different story for Sean Diddy Combs. I mean, Josh, back to these allegations. They're as serious as they get. This is the R-ing of the essaying, excuse me. It's been a long night. The essaying of a 13-year-old girl. How is this pursued now? Will the Southern District of New York, will they try to go after these, you know, Jay-Z criminally now, as they did with Diddy?
That's interesting. So Diddy was, I mean, if you remember, his homes were in Los Angeles and Florida. And that's where the raids were done. But then he was filed on federally in the Southern District of New York. And that's because of this trafficking and the crossing of state lines that it fell into federal jurisdiction. But they also brought this overall kind of conspiracy charge that allowed the feds to get involved. So the feds, I suppose, could include Jay-Z if we want to really kind of, see this out to its most serious and ultimate end. They could add Jay-Z as a defendant in the case along with Diddy if they felt that he was part of that overall criminal enterprise that they described in the criminal complaint against Diddy. But if we're just viewing this as a standalone kind of event, if they were to pursue it criminally, it would be in New York State, because it's a crime. Unless there's some sort of allegation that makes it federal, it's a crime that would be handled on the state level. And I imagine they're going to, if they hadn't already heard about it before now, if there was this kind of like, and that does happen, I will say, they walk a very fine line, but there's oftentimes civil cases where they do not decide to involve law enforcement because they're trying to negotiate some sort of civil agreement, and they realize that going to law enforcement will blow that entire thing up. But it could end up that they've, this is obviously somebody's pulled the pin on the grenade, and they're willing to expose this publicly. So it could be that just now the criminal investigators, both on the Diddy side and on the state level, could be starting to take a look at this. And, if there's more to support this and more to corroborate it than just somebody's allegations from 20 years ago, again, we could be looking at something very serious, which is what ended up happening with Diddy. I wanted to ask a question of Brian. Yeah. I'm curious as to your thoughts on, first of all, if this was filed in October, then Jay-Z and his team have known about it. They've obviously been in negotiations. It looks like a mediation fell apart. Do you think, one, that they knew this was coming, that they were going to expose this and file it in a way that everybody knew about it? And two, why on a Sunday? That's the curious thing to me.
Yeah. Brian, before you answer that real quick, there's a very interesting aspect to this. So this, the plaintiff here in this lawsuit says, again, she's a Jane Doe here, 13 years old at the time, 20 years ago, 2000 VMA after party. The complaint reads as, Jane Doe was looking for a place to rest. Plaintiff entered what she believed to be an empty bedroom so she could lie down for a moment. Again, she was feeling woozy from something she had. Soon after, Combs, along with a male and female celebrity, entered the room. Now we know that other male is Jay-Z. We know who Jay-Z is attached to. I'm not going to say the name, starts with a B. And we know who Diddy was attached to back then. I believe it was Jay, and the rest. So I just wanted to bring that in. So there's a male and female. The male obviously presumed to now be Jay-Z. But what about Ritter's question, Brian? Is this something that fell apart in mediation? Is this a big mistake in your opinion or estimation that Jay-Z may have just made?
Yeah. So to answer Josh's inquiry on the first level, yeah, this is an ongoing process. Diddy's lawyers were not at all shocked by what happened tonight, because we saw, and again, Napoleon said history repeats itself. The first time it's tragedy, and the second time is farce. Well, the first time we saw this was with Deshaun Watson, where Tony Busby was negotiating with Deshaun's lead counsel, one of my heroes, Rusty Hardin, and they went back and forth. And it was a situation where even before Busby was dealing with Rusty, he was dealing with Sean's agent. And there was a real opportunity to make those cases go away. But there was a dollar figure that ultimately was a deal breaker. So number one, yeah, they knew this was coming down the pike. The better question is, why on a Sunday night? Because anybody who has been in this business on any level knows that Sunday night is where news goes to die. You don't want to do that, which leads me to believe that tactically, this was a leak. because you and I and everybody who listens to this cast recognizes that sometimes things go astray. That's probably what happened here. And if it was NBC News or the New York Post or whomever that had the opportunity to break this, they weren't going to wait until, Good Morning America or Morning Joe came on. News happens now. It doesn't happen tomorrow. It doesn't happen yesterday. But to your point about the female celebrities who may have been involved at this point, again, this could be something where ultimately we don't see the likes of this and haven't seen the likes of this for a very long time. One of the things I kid around about on the criminal side, particularly in H-Town where I live, and occasionally in LA where Josh lives, is that it seems to be there's a trial of the century every year. And this may be the civil litigation of not just this year, but perhaps, the next 20. But one quick point, because I'm that appellate lawyer, I'm the geek, I'm the nerd. In both civil and criminal litigation, when you are charged with a party, the rules of evidence are totally different. Generally, anybody who's ever binge watched Law and Order recognizes something called hearsay, that you can introduce an out-of-court statement that a declarant made for the purposes of asserting its truth if the defendant had nothing to do with it and his or her DNA wasn't on it. That's not true now, because as in civil court, as in criminal court, there's such a thing as a civil conspiracy as well as a criminal conspiracy. So the rules of evidence are going to let in a whole lot more than you would see if this just happened to be an individual lawsuit against Jay-Z. I mean, this is everything up to and including the fact that, Jay-Z got off his detention in the 5th grade or smoked weed at summer camp. But it's going to be a situation where if I'm Jay-Z and the armada of lawyers, I cannot be pleased that I'm going to be sitting at a counsel table in the not too distant future before Josh and I are in the old people's Hebrew home, sitting with somebody like Jay-Z, sitting with somebody like P. Diddy. So as we begin the initial steps in this process, the discovery phase, at some point, assuming these cases aren't settled, and I'll take the under on that right now, we're going to go to things like depositions, and the fact that you're going to be deposed in a civil matter with somebody like P. Diddy, not going to be an easy road to hoe, guys.
Yeah. Ida Shaw JD brings up an interesting question. Josh, to you, does the panel think that Jay-Z is the one who filed a lawsuit against Busby? There was one recently filed, and the plaintiffs there, I guess, were unnamed. What's your take on that? And I have a question for Brian about the liability that Busby potentially faces. But do you think that this lawsuit filed against Busby could have been, sort of retaliatory from Jay-Z?
Well, I'm looking at the NBC report, and it says, and this was something I can't quite unwind just now, but it's saying that before the lawsuit, Jay-Z received a letter from plaintiff's counsel requesting a mediation to resolve the matter, which is not uncommon, that they try to resolve these things. They go to a private mediation. They, talk about money. But then in response to the letter, and this is what apparently Busby put in the lawsuit, Carter, meaning Jay-Z, filed his own lawsuit against the accuser's attorneys. And I don't know what the basis of that lawsuit would be. That's where I'm getting a little caught up, is why is he suing the attorneys? So, I hope that answers the question, but that was one of the parts of the news report I'm looking at that I had kind of highlighted as being what in the world is that all about? But it looks like, end of the day, shots fired from both sides.
Yeah, by the way, from Cauliflower, like the name, Jay-Z was not with Beyonce back then. That's not what I was implying. What I was implying is that these are two of the biggest celebrities in the world, and they literally are entities unto themselves worth billions of dollars. Yeah. And so her being dragged into it could really hurt her potentially, which kind of goes to my next question. Brian, again, back to Tony Busby. He's the one that filed this suit on behalf of this then 13-year-old Jane Doe. Tony Busby can't just sit here and file baseless lawsuits. I mean, he can't be doing that. So what do you think he has to protect himself? I mean, if anyone's got the money and the resources to destroy Tony Busby, it's going to be Jay-Z.
And obviously that's a great question. Look, Churchill said the facts are stubborn things, and that's what Tony Busby reasonably believes that he has. He has the facts. This is not Tony Busby's first rodeo. Believe me, he is battle tested. He's battle scarred. Again, if I had one civil lawsuit against a huge corporate entity to bring to their collective knees, he's probably going to be either the guy that I call or the leader in the clubhouse. So before Tony went out and filed this lawsuit in the Southern District via e-filing, I can assure you that he did his proverbial due diligence. He went out, he investigated the facts, he researched the law, and he had a reasonable good faith belief that the law and the facts supported the ultimate lawsuit. This is kind of odd that Jay-Z's lawyers would have filed suit against Tony Busby. It's rare that you attempt to do that against the messenger, against the mouthpiece, against the consigliere. In terms of a cause of action, I mean, again, I'm not at all well-versed in civil litigation. I do have a GED in cosmetology, which helps me from time to time. And I would think that if it was some form of, malicious prosecution, extortionate conduct, I'm not quite sure what it is. But all of these lawsuits will have to face the crucible of discovery, of motions to dismiss, of depositions, interrogatories, requests for admissions. I've read all that on the internet. That's how I know that. And so at some point, as this litigation reaches critical mass or even approaches critical mass, we're going to know a lot more than we do on a Sunday night in December, fellas.
Yeah, by the way, for those just joining, it is our second breaking news show of the evening. No rest for the weary, but if you are just joining us, we know Sean Diddy Combs has been dealing with ongoing civil suits on top of his criminal matter as he's being held without bail at the MDC Correction Center in Brooklyn. Well, tonight, everything changed. We kept hearing about potentially big names being dragged into this, and now it has happened with NBC News reporting that Jay-Z is now named in a lawsuit along with Sean Diddy Combs and Josh Ritter. The allegations go from ugly to just outright tough to read. This is according to the lawsuit. I'm going to read directly here. Joel, could you fix your mic placement? It's always so I've been racing around here. Combs aggressively approached plaintiff with a crazed look in his eyes, grabbed her and said, "You are ready to party." The woman alleged she was then pinned down and can't use the word here, essayed by both Sean Combs and Sean Carter, otherwise known as Jay-Z, as the unnamed female star watched. Josh, again, it's a 13-year-old girl. I have a 10-year-old daughter. So, this is difficult to read. This is as bad as it gets, but you're going up against arguably one of the most powerful people in the world.
Well, yes. First of all, yes, it's as bad as it gets because you're talking about the nature, first of all, that the victim is, not only just under the age of majority, but now, you have all sorts of sentencing enhancements the younger and younger the alleged victim gets. So 13 years old is about as bad as it can get. There's allegations that she took some sort of drink and felt lightheaded. So now we're talking about, it was some sort of assisted by alcohol or drugs. Again, just according to the allegations in the lawsuit. But then there's the forceful physical nature of it. This is the type of stuff that lands people in prison on a criminal level for the rest of their lives. I mean, this would have a life exposure, meaning it may have a 25 to life, 30 to life, but you're talking about to life, meaning indeterminate sentence where somebody's looking at the rest of their life in prison. So yeah.
Hey, Josh, I just want to cut you off for a sec because this is a breaking news situation, and I do not know, for full disclosure, whether this comment is accurate or not, but it is an interesting hypothetical. This person is saying that pics came out of a 13-year-old who's undressed with people eating food off her body, starting the essay at age 11. She said nobody would listen to her then. At a minimum, she has pics. What if, and again, we do not know if this is true. COE, can you help me out with this too? Apparently, Tony Busby replied to the statement. If we can find that, I would appreciate it. But what if pictures are out there? What if Tony Busby has these photos? I mean, there's no way in any kind of mediation that Jay-Z would have not paid anything to make it go away. What could happen if there is physical proof that this happened?
Well, yeah, that's what the prosecutors are going to be looking for, because you can't, you may be able to bring a lawsuit, as Brian pointed out, based on the allegations of someone, but you cannot bring a criminal filing. They need corroboration, but corroboration could be something as simple as photographs. If there's someone who says, I am this person depicted in this photograph, and I can give you certain other elements that you're able to date that photograph, authenticate that photograph, lay the foundation for how that photograph could be used at trial, that can be enough. In fact, that sometimes is enough and more than enough, because, we are talking 20 years ago. So there is no DNA, there is no forensic evidence. It is going to be things like other witnesses or photographs, or somehow corroborating this person's allegations so that they feel like it could stand up in court. Again, these things do happen where someone may say, you know what, I don't want to be put on the stand. I don't want to be cross-examined, but I was harmed by this person. And so I'm going to secretly, through my attorneys, approach that person and say, you need to make this right. And that is on a money level. And if those things fall apart, which is, this one certainly sounds like it has, then it's kind of any person's guess as far as what can happen criminally, because we're not, the idea of NDAs and everything else at this point. If the criminal investigators get involved, they're going to start interviewing this person. They're going to be asking for those photographs. They're going to be pursuing this. And you have to imagine that Jay-Z and all of his, you pointed out a couple of times, one of the more powerful, wealthy people in the world. I'll tell you what's far more powerful and wealthy is the federal government of the United States, and they will come crashing down, as we've seen with Diddy. That this is bad news if any sort of investigating body starts to get involved now.
And by the way, I'm checking out X, formerly known as Twitter, and it is absolutely blowing up, already trending, obviously, and half the people, it appears, do not believe it. The other half, are saying that he's known to be worse than Diddy. So they're having this debate in a public forum, the cesspool known as X. Now, Sean Combs' team had put out a statement previously saying, as his legal team has said before, Mr. Combs has full confidence in the facts and the integrity of the judicial process. In court, the truth will prevail. And this is interesting because here they say it explicitly that Mr. Combs never SA'd or trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. At least to the credit here, Brian, they're doing what you said, which is unequivocally saying, look, this has never happened before. At least Combs' attorneys are saying that, whether they believe it or not. I'm just like mystified by this. Again, obviously something really hard to prove. What do you think's going on right now with Tony Busby? How's he reacting to this kind of mayhem that's breaking out around him?
Well, I think Tony is a lawyer who is not just adept at representing his client in court, but on the courthouse steps, on the news at 4, 5, 6, and 10, on page 1 above the fold. And one of the things that I saw, and this movie has a real sense of, let's go to Yogi Berra, deja vu all over again, because I remember what happened in the time leading up to the bombshell filing of the lawsuits against then Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson. And I remember covering it both as a legal analyst, because it was one of those great things that I love, a story that combines criminal law and sports. And what happened was Tony Busby reached out, not directly to counsel, but to, as I recall, Deshaun Watson's agent, who, again, used the same type of verbiage that we're seeing tonight. This is a shakedown. This is extortion. This is a farce of mockery of an outrage and an injustice kind of deal. And it was only at that point, when negotiations broke down, that Deshaun Watson became a cocktail party joke. I guarantee you that if Team Watson could go back in time and take those allegations that Tony Busby brought to the forefront seriously, we're not having this conversation in the context of Deshaun Watson. Maybe he's leading the Texans to an AFC South title. I don't know. This is my point, that if I'm Jay-Z and I've got more money than God, and maybe including Oprah, why am I going to take the chance of my legacy, my name, my reputation, my character, maybe even, as Josh pointed out, my freedom? Write the guy a check. If I'm not suggesting that you're good for it, but at some point you can always get out the tool of the trade, an NDA, and make all of this go away. But you need to understand something, and I know that your viewers probably do, that the civil litigation process is infinitely different from the criminal process. For instance, like Josh pointed out early on, the burden of proof, immeasurably lower, not beyond a reasonable doubt. Preponderance of the evidence, 50-49. You don't need a unanimous jury finding as you do in a criminal case of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. In some states, 10-2. But moreover, in a civil case, you can't take the Fifth Amendment. And if you do, I say that, you can. But that invocation of that constitutional right that we've all come to know and appreciate is a circumstance that can be held against you in a civil trial. And what I'm saying is that it's not going to be like a criminal trial where that prosecutor knows that he or she can't come within an area code of saying that so-and-so lawyered up or took the Fifth. In a civil case, you don't have that fundamental protection, and sometimes it will rock your world.
Yeah, look at this, Clarissa. Real quick, Josh, from Clarissa Lockett here. I'm from H-Town, Houston. Jay-Z or not, you don't mess with Busby. He knows his stuff. It's hard to see. I just sent this to the COE. I'm going to read this to you. Tony Busby did respond with an Instagram post. This is it. It is tough to see. That is a photo of Busby as a Marine, and he writes on Instagram, recognize this guy? It's a photo of him. This is a picture of the weapons platoon commander, Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, from our old Western Pacific cruise book. Despite a coordinated and aggressive effort that has included harassing my kids, contacting my clients and former clients to encourage them to sue me, contacting my colleagues or former employees asking if I've quote-unquote abused them, showing up at my current employees' homes to harass them, filing frivolous cases against me and my law firm, defaming me with outrageous assertions to anyone who will listen, and having mysterious people follow me and my family. I am still that guy, meaning the guy in the Marines photo. I won't be bullied or intimidated. People will see through this effort to discredit me and my clients, and the truth will be revealed. I also won't allow anyone to scare my clients into silence. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and I'm quite certain the sun is coming. I got to go back, I'm sorry, to Brian on this because he knows Busby. Them is fighting words. This is a Marine who's saying, bring it on. Is he crazy, or is he smart and knows what he's doing?
I think it's the latter more so than the former. And we saw what happened again, and I hate to go back to it, but the past is prologue, particularly in the civil and criminal justice systems. And Rusty Hardin, who is a longtime friend and one of my heroes, recognized that in the court of public opinion, in the Watson matter, Tony Busby brought the gun to the knife fight. Rusty was kind of old school. I mean, Tony is Android, and Rusty was kind of like mono, like in the days of hi-fis. And what happened was, in the court of public opinion, where so much of this matters on so many levels, if this had been a heavyweight championship fight, guys, they'd have stopped it on cuts in the second round. And that's nothing against Rusty. It just means that Tony Busby's the real deal. And I remember, again, as part of that article in the Chronicle, Tony was alluding to the fact that people had reached out to his former employees. What kind of dirt does Busby have under his fingernails? What can you tell us about him? I mean, this is a guy, and you'd have to be. Tony Busby's not just taking on people like Deshaun Watson. He's taken on corporations whose gross national earnings are more than some, first, second, and third world countries. Again, it bears repeating, and there's a reason why Tony posted that shot of him in his Marine gear, because at the end of the day, this guy is fearless. It's not that he is flawless. It's not that he has not made mistakes along the way, but going into this lawsuit, he has got to know that he is not the home team. He's got to know that he's facing a veritable, again, love the term, armada of not just legal talent and investigative talent, but public relations talent. And I guarantee you this, that again, minutes into this breaking news, Tony Busby knows what kind of hole cards he has. And I know, in Josh's town, in the entertainment capital of the world, what's the old saying? You don't show jaws in the first reel, right, Josh? I mean, you want to whet their appetite. I can assure you that Tony Busby has jaws. He is not going to show it in the first reel, fellas.
Listen, this is interesting. This is a breaking news story. We've been on it for about 56 minutes. The headline is Jay-Z has now been named in a Sean Diddy Combs lawsuit. And I read a previous statement, which is here. You can look at it for yourselves. What is notable here is that nowhere does he take responsibility and say, I didn't do this. He's just kind of putting it off. While I leave that up there, RocNation, which is a company owned by Sean Combs, he put out a longer statement. Bear with me, Josh Ritter, while I read this. COE, I sent it to you. It's important because, look, he's defending himself, and he has every right to defend himself. This is a statement, again, from Jay-Z. My lawyer received a blackmail attempt called a demand letter from a lawyer in quotes, named Tony Busby. What he had calculated was the nature of these allegations, and the public scrutiny would make me want to settle. No, sir. It had the opposite. Sorry, the print's really small here. No, sir. It had the opposite effect. It made me want to expose you for the fraud you are in a very public fashion. So no, this is it. So no, I will not give you one red penny. I'm on the third paragraph here. These allegations are so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. That's what the shorter statement basically says. Whomever would commit such a crime against a minor should be locked away. Would you agree? So this is a portion of the smaller statement. This is obviously the bigger one. These alleged victims would deserve real justice if that were the case. The lawyer, who I've done a bit of research on, seems to have a pattern of these types of theatrics. I have no idea how you've come to such a deplorable human, Mr. Busby, but I promise you I've seen your kind many times over. I am more than prepared to deal with your type. You claim to be a Marine. Marines are known for their valor. You have neither honor nor dignity. My only heartbreak is for my family. My wife and I will have to sit our children down, one of whom is at the age where her friends will surely see the press and ask questions about the nature of these claims and explain the cruelty and greed of people. I mourn yet another loss of innocence. Children should not have to endure such at their young age. It is unfair to have to understand inexplicable degrees of malice meant to destroy families and human spirit. My heart and support goes out to true victims in the world who have to watch how their life story is dressed in costume for profitability by this ambulance chaser in a cheap suit. You have made a terrible error in judgment, thinking that all celebrities are the same. I'm not from your world. I'm a young man who made it out of the project of Brooklyn, We don't play these types of games. We have very strict codes and honor. We protect children. You seem to exploit people for personal gain. Only your network of conspiracy theorists, fake physics, will believe the idiotic claims you have leveled against me, that if not for the seriousness surrounding harm to kids would be laughable. I look forward to showing you just how different I am. Let me comment on this real quick, and then I'll let Brian and I'll let Josh jump in first. This came up recently in the Ellen Greenberg matter. She's a young woman who died in 2011, stabbed 20 times. Well, her fiance came out, and I ran a statement similar but different to this one by a very seasoned FBI agent. And he says that narcissists always are pointing the blame. Again, nowhere in this statement, not one spot does he, exactly, Lee, that's my point. Still no denial. Nowhere here does he deny it. He turns the narrative and puts it onto his own family, how heartbreaking it's going to be to tell his own child that. Josh Ritter, your response, obviously the battle has now taken a new step, this battle between Busby and Jay-Z.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to make himself the victim here and trying to turn Busby into the villain. You know what? Okay, but that may have worked and may have been a little more successful and fallen on far more receptive ears before Diddy got arrested. When Diddy got arrested, in my view, that was a sea change moment. That was about as powerful a person as you could imagine up to this point, getting not just having allegations, civil matters. This is a payoff. I'm paying, these are people after money. This is a person sitting behind bars as we speak. That, in my view, changed everything. And for Jay-Z and his team to still kind of be playing the old way of handling these things and trying to make themselves a victim and trying to posture this all as being about money, I think is a strategic mistake. Diddy changed everything, and he also became incredibly toxic. No one was coming to his defense, and you had to imagine that Jay-Z and all of his high-priced attorneys would know that. And this game of chicken that it looks like they've been playing with Busby since October, just, in my view, stupendously backfired in their faces. Because the whole point is to try to keep Jay-Z's name out of the press, not associated with Diddy, not a part of all of this awful stuff that we've been hearing about Diddy, not part of the ongoing grand jury that has been convened to continue to investigate stuff against Diddy. You would think that there is probably no amount of zeros they could put on a check that they wouldn't write to get rid of this whole thing. And they played a game of chicken, and I think it really is blowing up in their face. I don't think people are going to respond to Jay-Z's message, his statement that you just read, the same way in this day and age that we're living post Diddy being arrested and being behind bars. I think people's inclinations at this point is to start believing that a lot of this really awful stuff is actually kind of true.
Very well said there, Josh. Brian, to you, I mean, I just read the full statement. It's a partial statement. This is the full statement. And again, notably, look, this is going out as though it is written because it starts with my lawyer. So it's purported to be Sean Carter, Jay-Z himself. Nowhere in here is he saying categorically or unequivocally, I didn't do it. He's also bringing up the fact, and he knows that everyone knows he's incredibly wealthy. This is the son of a psychiatrist and social worker in me. If he pays, but when will the payment stop? I don't know that that's the concern at the moment. I don't have an answer to that one. But just here, Brian, I'm curious to get your take. Look, he's calling out a Marine now, which is fine. This is America. But again, he's flipping the narrative, saying that it's all about him, which is a tactic that narcissists or criminals do use, not saying that he's either a narcissist or a criminal. I'm just saying that it closely parallels something that those people would do. What do you make of this statement? And is Busby shuddering in his boots, in his Marine boots?
When I'm fortunate enough to teach other lawyers, judges, prosecutors, and dealing with the media, particularly in high-profile cases, I tell them, look, there's three things in life. Everybody thinks they can do better than everybody else without any preparation, experience, or training. It's make a martini, coach an NFL football team, and talk to the media. We know that's not true. And I tell them there are three things. Number one, dealing with the media, and tonight is an incredible example of it, to me is governed by the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. If you can't help your client, if you can't advance the story, as they say on Good Morning America today and every other news show that we're going to see, do everybody a favor, do your client a favor, say no comment. Number two is, if you don't tell your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you. They had the chance tonight to tell their story, and in my estimation, is Josh is so painstakingly critiqued it, and correctly so in my estimation, they're not going to get a second chance to make a first impression. Why? Third rule, particularly in the 24-hour news cycle, in the age of social media, it's real simple, guys. A card laid's a card played. If you say something stupid, if you do something stupid, if you have that cringeworthy soundbite, if you have that cringeworthy facial expression, you are not going to be able to have that drop off your record like a bankruptcy every 7 years. It is in the Ethernet and on YouTube forever. And again, in civil litigation, it's simple. You were a disgruntled employee. This is an extortionate attempt. Again, this is a farce of remark and outrage. But where the lines intersect between criminal and civil culpability, rule one in the playbook is simple. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Go bang your head against the wall. We didn't see that tonight.
Yeah, definitely not. By the way, Lee T, I'd never heard of this. It's DARVO, which stands for an acronym for Deny, Attack, Reverse Victim, and Offender. And that's certainly, that argument can be made. Thank you, Sherry, for becoming a YouTube member. By the way, this is a very difficult story, but I got two great guests on. Josh Ritter of Courtroom Confidential. My voice is going after 4 hours of doing this. And Brian Wice, who is one of the more formidable appellate attorneys in the country. Very bright guy, as you can tell from listening to him speak, originally from the Northeast, of course, because all great people are. Sorry, people come from everywhere. But anyway, I digress. This is interesting to me, this whole notion of DARVO, deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. That is arguably exactly what happened in this statement here. I'm going to pull it up for you. And then I just want to show you, this is a statement that Jay-Z, this is the full Jay-Z statement. And this here is the one from Busby. So now, and you can see Busby, this is on his Instagram with the Buzz haircut. He was and is a Marine. Marines very proud of that. So now this is turning into a bit of a verbal melee between a powerful attorney and powerful, perhaps one of the most powerful celebrities. Josh Ritter, to you. It is the Southern District of New York. Thank you, Edward Murphy. Not to be confused with Edward R. Murrow, but Josh Ritter, to you. Inside the SDNY tomorrow morning, that's the Southern District of New York. What, if anything, will be going on? I mean, this is a civil suit, but are they now going to reach out and try to get these purported photos that exist? We don't know if they do. You said it. I mean, the federal government has all the money in the world. State governments have plenty. What is going to happen inside baseball tomorrow?
Yeah, my educated guess is that the law enforcement was not aware of this, because that is kind of the card that they have to play when you have these civil negotiations going on. That usually the way it works is a victim will approach someone and say, I have not gone to law enforcement, but I demand X amount of dollars to resolve this. And if you refuse to, then I maintain my right to pursue any and all legal remedies. That is a very clever way of saying, by the way, the cops are still a phone call away, and that I may not have done it, but believe me, I can do it. And I think that is kind of the shadow talk that's taking place with Jay-Z's team too, maybe saying, well, we were being extorted. Because what you can't do is say, pay me the money or I'm going to the cops, because that would be extortion. So everybody kind of plays this game, and everybody knows the rules, and they've played it for long enough that they know that this has not landed on the footsteps of a actual criminal investigator or agency yet. But now, sure, like you said, the Southern District of New York, they absolutely, I think, would start making inquiries. Absolutely. I'm sure they've been in touch with Busby on other related issues, and they're probably going to go to him on this one and say, listen, what is being alleged here is absolutely a crime. And that crime, by the way, not to be missed in all of this, the co-defendant is Sean Combs, an ongoing criminal defendant with the feds. So they certainly could say, if this is another crime against Sean Combs, at least, we want to know more about this. And if that happens to expose criminally Jay-Z as well, so be it. They're obviously not afraid of the people that they're going after anymore. So, but I do believe that the feds would not be waiting on this to allow the civil case to kind of play itself out. If they are aware of a crime that's taken place, they're going to investigate it.
Yeah, this is an interesting comment right here. By the way, Ida Shaw is always checking me, which I like, but I just double and triple checked. And this statement that I read, this long statement right here, is in fact, unless about 10 media sources are wrong, this is in fact from Jay-Z. But multiple media outlets, including NBC News, are reporting that as his statement. So I will fall right in line and apologize if that's not for him. But everything points to the fact that, I don't know that he actually wrote it. I doubt that he did. But who knows? He's an artist. Maybe he did write it. Nikki Cudds, friend of mine, friend of the show. Her husband is an attorney. Her husband worked for Jay during the alleged assault. There you go. Nikki, you can break any news you want on my show. If he's done this, he should pay and pay hard. My experience is so different. It's mind-blowing. He's been around my kids and always with kindness and humility. Look, she's been around him personally, accused of really heinous stuff. But Nikki Cudds has interesting perspective. She's saying it, by the way, thank you, Ashley. Nikki's, I guess, dealing with this literally on a personal level. So Nikki, I'll reach out after the show. Your husband's got a platform right here, Cudds. I know he'd never do it, but he's got a platform right here. Some questions. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. If you have questions for these two guests who made time on a Sunday night, put them in triple Qs and we'll go to them. Brian, who I've never met in person, great guy, as far as I can tell. Josh Ritter, who I have met in person, great guy. I can confirm that, as is his wife, who is like the COE. Both of them tell us what to do, and we do it. What about a statute of limitations? I know you're not well versed, I guess, in New York law, Brian, but would there be some sort of statute of limitations on this that would prevent it from moving forward? And if so, why would Busby ever have filed it?
Well, let's deal with the civil arena first. My understanding is that a couple of years ago, New York State passed a provision that ultimately extended on a grand level the statute of limitations for filing civil cases involving claims of sexual assault and the like against minors. It extended the window. So believe me, Tony Busby didn't take correspondence courses for his law degree. I'm sure that before he went to DEFCON 1 to file a civil suit, that he knew that he was on firm legal footing. But again, it's like we've talked about tonight, and I think there's a consensus, and rightfully so. in the schoolyard that all of us who do this exist in, the feds are the toughest kid in the schoolyard. And as anybody who's ever binge watched Billions knows, there's a reason why the Southern District of New York, among all of the judicial districts and U.S. attorneys' offices and judicial systems in this great country, is the first among equals. The people who are in the C-suite in Foley Square are the best, the brightest, the boldest, and the baddest at what they do. And I can assure you, as the three of us are having this coffee clutch tonight, there's a little bit of activity down in Foley Square where they're probably burning the midnight oil based upon this breaking news that we're all talking about tonight. Josh did make a great point very early on. Criminal law, by and large, is a matter of state jurisdiction. It's an exception rather than the rule that the feds will be involved. We look at the traditional, federal crimes, conspiracy, money laundering, wire fraud, mail fraud, things of that nature. If there's any criminal investigation going on, it's going to be, again, assuming this all happened, I guess, in Manhattan at the VMAs, in New York County, an office that's never been in the news, really, when it comes to criminal cases, he says sarcastically. But again, right now, I have the question that I'm going to ask myself for a very long time, as I'm sure that Jay-Z's folks will, is why didn't you take negotiating with Tony Busby more seriously? It's always easy just to say, you know what, this is a shakedown, this is extortion. But I am telling you, money is the last thing that I really think that Jay-Z needs to be concerned with, because in life, all that we really have, I don't want to sound like, my old rabbi in the north end of Hartford, Rabbi Lindenthal, but what do we take to our grave? Our name, our character, and our reputation. And make no mistake, it was after his acquittal in federal court 25 years ago that Ray Donovan, no, not the Showtime Liv Schreiber character, but former Secretary of Labor Ray Donovan, was acquitted in federal court, famously said, "Where do I go? What room to get my good name back?" It's a question that some people in Jay-Z's camp are going to be asking tonight, guys.
Very, very astute point. By the way, someone's yelling at me that I said DV. I've been on doing this, not that it's an excuse, but I made a mistake. How about that? So it's R and SA. We can't say the words on YouTube. R and SA, not DV. Please accept my apologies. Vesper Martini, she lives in my hood somewhere, and she's all over everything. In 2019, New York expanded the statute of limitations to 20 years for both civil and criminal cases involving some categories of sex crimes, like R. Again, I screwed that one up.
I'm not sure, but I'm curious too if that was even further for minors. I mean, we're talking about the idea that this person was a child at the time that this took place. That I know that several different jurisdictions have extended that even decades beyond that. Criminally.
Josh Ritter, this is a very interesting question. Is there a possibility of Jay-Z being already investigated? In other words, from a criminal side, is it possible that they are looking into stuff that we are unaware of?
Sure. I mean, absolutely. The criminal complaint, the indictment against Diddy, against Sean Combs, talked about his criminal enterprise. It talked about, people involved in his criminal enterprise and assistants and other associates and all of these other people. Yet it was the United States of America versus Sean Combs. He was the only named defendant. So there are plenty of unnamed co-conspirators implicated in the way that they drafted that indictment. And like I said, it's not like they filed that indictment, arrested Diddy, and then stopped all their work. They've still had a grand jury convened. I don't know if it's currently convened, but this is an ongoing and moving and evolving investigation. And I think that is in no small part because once Diddy got arrested, people said, "Oh, okay. I feel like I have the courage now to tell my story." And I imagine there were, Busby, it's Busby alone who represents 100-something people, right? That he did this press conference
120
on.
people, 60
So
men,
people,
60 women.
Yeah, I can imagine there are probably many more names that are easily recognizable to us beyond Jay-Z that are currently under investigation.
This is another thing here. Tony Busby, if this is true about the 13-year-old girl, there's either a police report, not necessarily on the R of Jay-Z, a medical report from the hospital. I mean, Brian Wice, that's not necessarily true, correct?
Yeah, in a situation like that, particularly involving conduct that happened allegedly, 2 decades plus, there may not be that kind of documentation. There may not have been the visit to the hospital for an R kit or an SA kit to have been prepared, or for an incident report to have ultimately been promulgated. It's not as if the Vic in this case went down to the first precinct and again made immediate outcry. Those are the kinds of questions that we're going to be seeing in the days, weeks, and months ahead. But again, whether it's civil or criminal in nature, every citizen accused of any wrongdoing, civil, criminal, you name it, is entitled to all of us not rushing to judgment and ultimately ensuring that the process plays out in a manner where whatever happens, the end result is a fair proceeding that produces a reliable result, one that we can have confidence in.
Yeah. Tony Busby, by the way, also tweeted. It's a little lengthy. Bear with me. I just want to be fair to all sides here. That's why we read the entire Jay-Z statement. This is from Tony Busby. Of course, there was this, which is an Instagram post, but now he's on the X, otherwise known as Twitter. He writes, regarding the Jay-Z case and his efforts to silence my clients, Mr. Carter previously denied being the one who sued me and my firm. He filed his frivolous case under a pseudonym. So now he's admitting that he is the one who sued him. What he fails to say in his recent statement is my firm sent his lawyer a demand letter on behalf of an alleged victim, and that victim never demanded a penny from him. Instead, she only sought a confidential mediation. Since I sent that letter on her behalf, Mr. Carter has not only sued me, but he has tried to bully and harass me and this plaintiff. His conduct has had the opposite impact. She is emboldened. I'm very proud of her resolve. As far as the allegations and the complaint filed, we will let the filing speak for itself and will litigate the facts in court, not the media. Brian, got to go back to you because you know Busby. Look, this is I mean, it is happening in a court of public opinion, the public square now, which is X. They're going back and forth, and he's just called out Jay-Z and said Jay-Z is the one who tried to sue me.
Well, and it's funny you say that because I don't know if everybody can see this, but I'll kind of hold it up. Yeah. Busby's also on Facebook because, he's one of the 5,000 Facebook friends. So I have who I don't know, but I actually do know Tony Busby. Look, I've said it before. It's worthy of repeating. In the 21st century, in the 24-hour news cycle, and the world where social media rules, you have got to do more than e-file a document and make sure that it beats the statute of limitations. You have got to get out there and put on a compelling narrative that tells your story before, again, somebody else tells it for you. And what we saw in Watson, again, the past is prologue, is, in my estimation, the beginning of the end for Deshaun Watson came when, again, not just failing to take Tony Busby seriously. If what you just read, I think is huge. It's consequential because if they weren't even looking for money, if all they wanted was a mediated settlement, my God, geez Louise, what tactical downside was there in saying, you know what, fine, let's call a TV timeout. Let's do this. Let's kill the shot clock and see what happens. But by being unable or unwilling to do that, and playing chicken with Tony Busby. Again, I've seen this movie before. It's going to end badly. Deshaun Watson still could have been the quarterback for the Houston Texans if that story hadn't blown up in everybody's face the way that it ultimately did.
Yeah.
Tony Busby, again, somebody who you want to have in your back in a gang fight, guys.
Yeah, Brian, real quick, forgive my ignorance. I'm not as smart as you, and I'm definitely not an attorney, even though I should have become one, and I might have been retired by now. But I digress on a Sunday night. So he's saying it was not for money, but for mediation. Wouldn't a mediation result in money, or what was he looking for there?
Not necessarily. I mean, it could have been something as simple as wait for it, an apology, or an acknowledgement, an acceptance of responsibility.
Wow.
Josh, the kind of terms we hear in criminal court all the time, that's going to ultimately result in a lesser criminal penalty. Well, it's the same in civil litigation. If all you're looking for is an apology, then there may be no need to go to DEFCON 1 and look for millions and millions of dollars. So if Busby is correct, and unless and until there's some objective, compelling, consequential evidence that says he's fibbing, this may have been the most consequential misjudgment in the civil arena that we've seen in a very, very long time, guys.
Yeah, just a couple more minutes. For those who are joining very late, we appreciate you being here. If you like the content, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. We've got a Patreon link where the COE, who's the chief of everything here, puts out court documents, statements, things that we're talking about tonight on the Patreon page. Please follow Josh Ritter. He is simultaneously streaming this on Courtroom Confidential. Josh and I are working to bring you breaking news from both a news person's perspective, i.e. me, and also from a legal perspective. I think it was Nicole Longo who just wrote in the comments, Joel, you're intelligent in a different sort of way, which is I don't even know how to respond to that. I'll get myself in trouble if I say anything, but that's sweet. That's something my mother would say too. I think maybe. Anyway, Josh Ritter, I got a couple more, and then I promise we're going to wind this down. The headline again, Jay-Z now dragged into a civil lawsuit filed by Houston attorney Tony Busby. The two of them are fighting over Instagram and Twitter. And Brian Wice, who's from Houston and knows Tony Busby personally, is saying that Jay-Z, in so many words, is treading on dangerous water by messing with Busby. Now, I've had some sources and some people that I've talked to who've been following the Diddy part of this, and I saw it in the comments, which reminded me. People are saying this is true. Great channel to Josh. There you go. Look, we like to spread the love amongst content creators. But Josh Ritter, I'm hearing that superseding indictments are coming down before the first of the year. We're now at December 8th. What does this mean? And what does this mean potentially for Jay-Z as well?
Yeah, a superseding indictment means that they indicted someone. They brought criminal charges. Somebody's been arrested. There's a named defendant. It's the U.S. versus whoever. And then they continue to investigate. And then they continue to convene a grand jury. And they continue to submit evidence to that grand jury. And they can ask that grand jury to add charges. They can ask that grand jury to add defendants. So a superseding indictment means exactly what it sounds like. It's going to be an indictment that takes over for the old one, and he's going to get worse, not better.
I mean, let me just interrupt you there. And I apologize, I don't like to interrupt, but what are the odds of a superseding indictment now, including this guy's name, Sean Carter, Jay-Z? Is there a possibility that could happen?
I mean, yes, there's always a possibility. I think that if they had been working on a superseding indictment with P. Diddy and they're now just learning about this stuff with Jay-Z, it might be moving too quick for the federal government even to bring a superseding indictment, including him, but they're certainly opening something up. I guess the point is that there's never a point where they can't stop investigating, and there's never a point where they can't stop bringing charges. I mean, obviously they have to stop by the time you're in trial and by the time you get convicted. But up until that point, they continue to investigate and add charges. And we know that there has been a grand jury convened. That's where all this idea of a superseding indictment is coming from, is that they were continuing to investigate this. So I believe it's just going to continue to get worse and may include other names. One thing I wanted to add, though, on this idea of, Jay-Z's people firing back in this snarky message against Busby, and then Busby, kind of throwing down the gauntlet on who he is and come at me and all that. It is such noise and nonsense and posturing and chest puffing coming from lawyers on both sides. Jay-Z is already losing here. The headlines tomorrow are going to be Jay-Z, Diddy, 13-year-old, and sexual assault. And that is what the news cycle is going to be. And that is a large impact on Jay-Z already. I mean, just reputationally, money, all of the ad dollars and business associations, all of those people went jumping ship with Diddy, and they're going to start doing the same with Jay-Z. So already this has been, to Brian's point, a huge strategic miscalculation as far as if they thought they could weather the storm of this thing going public and playing chicken with Busby about the whole thing. They're already on the losing end of this, and the criminal charges, obviously far more serious than anything else, but that is not the end of his troubles. They've just begun.
Really well said there, Josh. And it makes me think what is coming next. A lot of people are saying this is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. I got to go back to Ritter on this, then 2 quick questions and then closing thoughts. I promise you. Will Diddy give up Jay-Z? I mean, Josh is in Los Angeles. He's in the land of celebrity there. What about this? I mean, also as a former prosecutor of the year, what are the chances? Diddy's now been sitting in that MDC for months. Rats are running around. He knows there's a poor likelihood of him ever getting out. 3 bail denials. Is there a chance he says, let me talk to you guys?
100%. I mean, that is a large way that the feds put together their cases, is that they lean on someone. And, if the idea of him ever seeing the light of day and breathing free air again is something they can dangle in front of him, he's going to give up anybody and everybody. Same with the Jay-Z, by the way. If they can lean on him and get other names or get further evidence against Diddy, it is amazing how quickly people turn when the federal government is sitting on the other side of the table from them. I mean, that whole Varsity Blue case, remember this from years ago about all the college entrance shenanigans where all the wealthy people paying off colleges. The whole reason that broke is there was some jerk in New York who had tax problems. And as he's sitting down for a proffer, they're asking him, you know anything else? And he goes, well, I know about this guy who's paying off colleges to get kids in. And they go, tell us about this. I mean, this is how the feds work, is they lean on people, advertise, that carrot in front of them of, hey, maybe we can help you out. And people start to sing, man. I'm telling you, nobody's tough when they're looking at the rest of their life in prison.
Yeah. This is fascinating. I just did a quick Google search and it's all over. And every headline, to Josh's point, Jay-Z accused. So whether he's innocent at this point or not, he's going to be somewhat convicted in the court of public opinion. And that is devastating to his brand, to Beyonce's brand, anyone associated with him. And you heard Josh say it was a strategic error. It could have been one of epic proportions. Very quickly, Brian, you kind of touched on this, but I'm just curious, what is sort of the legal ramifications of filing his name sort of ex post facto after the original filing, now bringing in Jay-Z's name a couple months later? And what about burden of proof here? So 2 legal questions. They added Jay-Z's name late, and what kind of burden of proof would Tony Busby need in a civil case?
Well, again, the fact that Jay-Z's name was added at the 11th hour, to me is of no or little moment. As long as it gets added before the statute of limitations runs, before that shot clock hits 24 seconds in the NBA kind of deal. And again, the burden of proof, like we've talked about, is so much more reduced than it is in the criminal arena. You know, everybody that didn't sleep through civics recognizes that proof beyond a reasonable doubt, while not proof beyond all doubt. And I know, you know, Josh is having an LSD flashback to when he used to voir dire juries on this. It's the kind of doubt that would make you hesitate before you exercise the most important of your affairs. What, like getting married, buying a car, maybe doing this podcast on a Sunday night. But be that as it may, the burden of proof is not anything I really think that concerns Tony Busby. 2 quick points before we wrap this up. Number one, to Josh's point about, is there a possibility of P. Diddy rolling on Jay-Z? 2 words, hell yes. You know, I have learned more in 45 years as a criminal defense attorney from pop culture and as a sports writer than from all those dusty law books that we had to read in law school. And there's that great scene in the beginning of Goodfellas where the young Henry Hill comes out after he's been caught selling bootleg cigarettes. And the Jimmy Conway character rolls up on him and he goes, you know, you learn the 2 most important things in life. Always keep your mouth shut and never rat on your friends. Well, yeah, but by the end of that movie, what is he doing? He's rolling on everybody. He's rolling on Jimmy. He's rolling on Big Paul because he realizes that the rest of your life is a very long time. Last but not least, I think we may have said this in connection with what happened when P. Diddy initially got rung up by the feds. But when I think of what Jay-Z and Team JC is going through tonight, I'm reminded, and here's a history lesson, of what President Johnson said when he realized the Vietnam War was turning against him. He said he felt like a hitchhiker on a West Texas highway in a hailstorm. He couldn't run, he couldn't hide, and he couldn't make it stop. Guys?
By the way, Brian Wice is the only person in the world that reminds me of Steve Cohen. These guys are spirit animals, not in their looks, but just the way they drop references. I've never seen anything like it from 2 human beings. I told Cohen he needs a book called Steveisms, and the follow-up will be Brianisms, and I will take 10%, 20% of all of that. Jay-Z don't have 99 problems. He's got 100 problems now, from Samantha Marlman, who's always here. Again, if you guys appreciate this content, please hit like, please subscribe. You can help us out on Patreon page. By the way, if you haven't heard, I've got a book out about my mother, same name, Surviving Survivor. She's the woman right over my head. She's the matriarch of the show, a child Holocaust survivor, 15% about the Holocaust, 85% her dropping F-bombs and yelling at me. I guarantee you one thing, the book will change how you view life. I will guarantee you that. Josh Ritter and I are hoping that this is the first of many to come. Breaking news, teaming up on it, where he handles the legal side, I handle the news side. Check out Josh's channel, Courtroom Confidential, on YouTube. Ritter, this is a crazy night. Thank you for jumping on. Fantastic as always. Where does this go next?
Well, I think it's just the beginning of the floodgate starting to open. I really do. I really think that there were just far too many people involved in what Diddy was up to, far too many big names. A lot of things have been buried for far too long, and people no longer are in fear. They're no longer in fear. They're no longer just waiting for a check that will never come. And the government has demonstrated that they will take these people down. And I would not be surprised if Jay-Z might be in criminal trouble beyond this civil stuff. And if you want to talk about him, you know, all those big words, all the big talk and chest thumping is going to go right out the window if he starts talking to federal investigators. And he might not be the last one. I'm not trying to stir us all up, but I really think that we're going to be hearing about some more names.
By the way, the person who might be benefiting and the happiest at this news is Sean Diddy Combs. No doubt he's heard about it at the NBC. I meant to follow up Brian Wice, Wice, by the way. How is it possible that you've been doing law for 45 years when you look like you're 37? Makes no sense. It defies all logic. What is the secret, Wice?
Good Yankee genes. My dad, God rest his soul, who was a member of the Greatest Generation, who served in the Fifth Army in the European theater, was buried the day after his 99th birthday with military honors. And then my Nana, God bless her, who would say, if she was in the same room with Jay-Z and P. Diddy, she would say, let me tell you something, boy chick. You lay down with dogs, you get up with fleas. Okay? Schmendrick. I'm blessed. You know what? My life's like high school with money. What can I say, fellas?
Give me some of that money. I love you. Love you, Houston. Love you, Los Angeles. Once again, if you're living under a rock and just coming out, Jay-Z's name has been dragged into the Diddy debauchery. He is now named in a civil lawsuit. Where this leads next is anybody's guess, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be too great a thing for Jay-Z and possibly others moving forward. We're back tomorrow, Tuesday. Donna Adelson's in court, so we're previewing that at 12:30 tomorrow, and I have a feeling we're all over this New York City manhunt story. We made a commitment to you to bring you breaking news in 2025. We're not quite there yet, but we're ahead of schedule, and of course, we're going to continue to follow this. Love you all. Have a great night. Be nice to each other. Be kind. Don't kill anyone.